Well, hello once again. Hola, hola, mis amigos. This is, of course, the Midnight Skeptic, and this broadcast is going to go out this coming Sunday, the 27th of October. Halloween is getting close, but not as close as the election as far as stress goes. And it'll go out this Sunday at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, which means midnight out on the East Coast, where I have a few listeners out there. And I'm recording this on Wednesday, October 23rd. And it's right now about 2:45. And as I've said before, the reason I do this, which is a bit different from the reason I was doing it when I first started this down at the KPCA studios in downtown Petaluma here. Now, the show has become quite political, and I should get back to my original intent for the most part after the election is over. November 5th is the election, and Kamala Harris will win. I am very, very pleased to be that optimistic. Well, I am. The polls show the race more or less as a dead heat, with Kamala Harris being a little bit ahead by 1 or 2 or 3 percentage points. But the right-wingers and the MAGA heads and the Christian nationalists, fundamentalists are flooding the polls that tend to lean right-wing anyway with their fake information and trying to create a bandwagon effect. Well, the mainstream media has not truly caught on to this yet. They still go with the averaging of all these polls and that have Kamala Harris essentially tied with the orange sociopathic bloat bag well within the margin of error, as they say. Okay, so here, after having blathered on about all of that, here's my play-in music. You are listening to KPCA LP, Petaluma, California, at 103.3 FM and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. And this is the Midnight Skeptic. The views of the Midnight Skeptic are not, repeat, not necessarily the views of KPCA or any of its affiliates. Okay, there's one more thing that I have to say to keep the powers that be at Petaluma Community Access happy. The station manager's Facebook page got hacked, and he requested a friend on the Facebook page, and I thought for a long time that we already were friends. Okay, so I said, of course, we're friends. And it turned out to be a hack. And then so exchanging of emails back and forth, he mentioned that I should say what I'm going to say right now. But it's part of my play-in music that my opinions, correct as they are not necessarily the opinions of Petaluma Community Access or the station, KPCA LP. officially it's LP also tacked onto the end there because they are a low power FM station. Okay, so this is what I have to say, according to the station manager, Rob. The thoughts and opinions expressed on this program do not reflect the policies of Petaluma Community Access or KPCA Radio. Now, okay, that's essentially what I say in my play-in music segment. Okay? I am woke, WOKE, and I don't see that as a put down or a negative quality. MAGA heads and conservatives and Republicans and GOPers and Christian nationalist fundamentalists are not woke. And they would never call themselves that. They would call liberals and progressives like me as woke, thinking that, oh no, I'm not woke. Yeah, I am. And woke to me is having compassion for your fellow men, women, everybody, and not caring that there's a wide variety of beliefs and sexual orientations and sexual identities out there. Yeah, it doesn't. Well, it doesn't bother me. There's no reason why it would bother me. And I am in support of the LGBTQ community, which is the main thing that I've been called woke about. Yeah, okay. Name calling and hateful messages from the right wingers and the GOPs is all part of the game, and it goes all the way up to bomb threats. I've not gotten any, but election workers especially in the states that are close together between Kamala and the orange sociopathic bloat bag, bomb threats are the coin of the realm for Republicans and GOP MAGA heads and worshippers and followers of the orange sociopathic bloat bag. So let's get that straight. I am a liberal. I'm progressive. I am a big fan of Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and the group that she's more or less aligned with in the Congress. I wish her well. And I am not a fan of Republicans, okay? And there's a dwindling number of what I would call thoughtful, intelligent, thinking Republicans. Most of them that are that way have left the party and established the Lincoln Project, which is an anti-orange sociopathic bloat bag group of ex-Republicans, because the Republican Party is no longer what it used to be. It was at one point, and I'm talking decades ago, it was a respectable opposition political party to the Democratic Party. Well, it's no longer that. Now it's a cult that just worships the orange sociopathic bloat bag in their breathtaking stupidity. Okay? And I've said before on shows that I am still a registered Republican. When I turned 21 at that time, this is before the voting age was lowered to 18, which Richard Nixon did. I was in the Navy at that time. when I turned 21, and I registered to vote. And at that time, it was kind of, the thing to be, and I was not aware. I was not politically with it, or I didn't care about things like that. I cared about things that most sailors, young sailors, care about. Women, okay? So I, through sheer laziness, mainly, have not changed my registration yet. And occasionally I get things from the Republican National Party, and the NRA sends me things now and then. I still have a NRA membership card that I'm just waiting to fill out the form and send it back to them. Well, I'm not going to do that. Because I don't even own a gun. I do own one gun. My great grandfather, who was with the Tennessee Volunteers in the Civil War, got shot out from under his Colt 6-shooter, which was collected and given to his wife at the time, and then passed down in our family to the firstborn son. And, here I am. I'm eventually wound up with this, and my son, Dennis, will eventually be the owner of this gun. And my aunt and uncle, who had it before me, took it to a gunsmith for cleaning, and it does work, except that we don't have any bullets for it. So, anyway, enough of that. It's time for shout-outs, and I'll try to get through this as quickly as possible so I can get to the meat of this show. First shout-out is Project Censored. I always start off with them because I think they're worth mentioning, and to all of my thousands of viewers and listeners out there, worth taking advantage of by going to their website, projectcensored.org, and signing up for their newsletter. They do a good job with it, and every year they publish a new book called The State of the Free Press. And then the year 1924 is available now. 2024. Boy, I'm 100 years off. Oh, well. And the State of the Free Press 2025 is at the printers right now, and it'll be available. I'll let you know when it'll be available. But Mickey Huff, who is back east now at, oh boy, I always have a brain freeze on the name of the college that he's a professor at now. It'll pop into my mind. I'm not worried about occasional brain freezes anymore, which happen to me as I get older and older. It happens to all of us. Okay. And Nolan Higdon, who's a history professor at Cal State East Bay. And I see him a lot on the Channel 5 and Channel 2 news programs talking about all things political and economic and historical. And Andy Lee Roth, who's a history professor at UC Santa Cruz. Okay? And, okay, so they're the three dudes that are behind Project Censored and keeping it going and alive and functioning. Okay. John Crowley, the founder, I guess he was in partnership with somebody, but he's there. He's the face of Aquas Cafe, and he's established a number of communities, nonprofits, poets, folk singers, writers, artists that gather there for meetings and whatnot. In fact, tonight I'm going to Drinks with Shrinks. I didn't, at the time I signed up for this thing, I thought it was going to be at Aquas Cafe, which was where the last one was about 6 months ago or so. And I was hoping that some of the psychotherapists that I've come to know over these many years that I've been living in Petaluma since 1986. Yeah, when my wife and I moved up here from San Francisco. Um, anyway, I was hoping to meet up with a couple of the therapists that I've gotten to know. Um, Two of them specifically. I won't mention their names, but they didn't show up. Okay, and but I had some interesting conversations and a couple of drinks. They don't sit around analyzing each other, but that would be interesting if they did. But anyway, this particular meeting is a more structured meeting, but I've already signed up for it, so maybe I'll meet some of the ones that I've met before at this event. It's at where is it? Where is it? It's at 133 Copeland, and the venue that they're meeting is Life on Earth Art. It's sort of in a out of the way place, and I've never been inside Life on Earth Art. Well, okay, I'll educate myself about what that actually is. Okay, and I'll have a few drinks with shrinks. All right. Tom Gaffey, the godfather of the Phoenix Theater alternative teens that hang out there, and just by his experience alone with alternative teens, he should probably be considered a therapist now. And like me, I'm not officially a therapist, but I was a private tutor for a long time since we first actually moved up here, and my wife started helping out the local kids, grammar school kids, where my sons were going, with their reading and arithmetic. And well, these kids get older. Well, they go to middle school and they go to high school. And so around 1990, I got involved with tutoring a few kids myself with their algebra and geometry and whatever else they needed, past tense. And then, well, cut ahead, we started getting referrals from teachers and counselors at the middle school, Kenilworth, and Casa Grande and Petaluma High, and a few even from St. Vincent's High School, which at that time was associated with the Diocese of Santa Rosa. They've since cut ties with them, and so we had to hire a couple of helpers. I mean, our business really took off. And a lot of the kids that I tutored, which were the older ones, my wife continued to tutor the younger grammar school kids, but the high school kids, there were some what is now called neurodivergent kids at that time in the 90s and early 2000s. The LGBTQ community had not really blossomed into the group that it is now. That, in fact, that term LGBTQ, plus or LGBTQQQQ, whatever, sort of evolved in the mid 2000s, and since has become a a dividing line between woke, which I am and my other compadres are, and the hateful, cruel, mean girl Republican GOP MAGA heads, when when the orange sociopathic bloat bag came along and kind of took over the Republican Party. Anyway, so I've had a fair amount of experience, and I won't go into names of kids or whatever, but I've had experience with the kids themselves and their parents, and so as a practical matter, I've had a lot of experience with that, and not to mention having a master's degree in clinical psychology from John F. Kennedy University over in Pleasant Hill. They've since closed down that campus. I think it was about 6 or 7 years ago. I believe they still have one campus down in the LA area somewhere, but I went there for my 2 years, got my master's, and they were, even while I was going there, they were rather odd, let me say, and they even had a separate department of parapsychology, which, as a member of the skeptics community, I was skeptical because they believed in things like, the afterlife of when you die and coming back, and oh God, what are some of the other things they believed in? Astrology. Anyway, I don't want to get into that. I will do a segment on the parapsychology department of John F. Kennedy University on some future show. After the election, I'll go into them. But anyway, I got my master's, and so I have some professional skills, let's say. But I've never practiced that except in my private tutoring. Okay, enough of that. Okay, Ralph Scott, who is an audio book producer here in Petaluma, and his company is called Squeaky Cheese Productions, LLC, Limited Liability Corporation. And he has a stable of voice thespians at his disposal. Authors of books send their books to him if they want them on a audio book. Okay. Let's see. David Rubin. He and I roomed together before I met my wife in San Francisco for about 2 years. He was and currently is probably the world's greatest pulmonary physician. And when I met him, he was a doctor up at UCSF up on the Parnassus campus. UCSF has since built a brand new campus down around the Giants ballpark in that area. But at that time, the Parnassus campus was the only one. He did about 2/3 research and 1/3 actual clinical hours that he had to have, seeing patients that had some sort of lung troubles. But his research was on endothelial cells and the enzymes that they secreted into the bloodstream from the lungs where they were. Okay, enough of that. He retired, went to work for GlaxoSmithKline to set up clinical studies for them to see which of their new drugs were, whether they worked or whether the side effects from them was worse than the condition they were designed to cure. And then he retired from them and then pursued his art career, or he's pursuing it now. He's in Chicago at the Lost Artists Collective in Chicago. And go to his website, David Rubin Paintings, plural, it ends with an S, .com. And check out his works. He has a very, I would say, unique and bizarre take on reality that gets expressed in his paintings. So check him out. Okay. Now for the sea of people that occasionally listen to this show. Dave and Rosie Takach up in Sacramento, Kevin and Lori in Katati, Tom and Nancy Throw here in Petaluma, Tim Conrad here in Petaluma. He occasionally listens in. And, there was one more shout out, Rabbi Ted. He's retired now, but he was the rabbi at B'nai Israel here in Petaluma, the temple. My wife was Jewish. She and I used to go down there for night classes and special events like Rosh Hashanah dinner and all of that kind of stuff. And I learned a lot through these night classes that Rabbi Ted held. And I met Art Kuznets, a local guy, through B'nai Israel. Okay, Rich and Kathy Berger over in Sebastopol. And then down in Tiburon, Dennis and Megan. San Francisco, Yvonne and Rick. And over in Pacifica, Stan and Kathy. Stan, I've known him for a long time. When we worked together at Payless Drugs there in San Francisco, he was going through law school at that time, and then he became eventually the city attorney at Daly City. Well, he retired from that now. And further on down, in the LA area, Aunt Jackie and Samantha and her little boy David, and over her sister Melanie, who has now moved to Austin, Texas, and she seems to be enjoying her life there. Austin, I've never been there, but I gather that it's a beacon of liberalism in a sea of Republicans. Okay, Arkansas, Shannon Reed. Over to Florida, Nelson and Alice Lydell. Nelson is a retired officer of the U.S. Public Health Service, and his specialty was breathing apparatuses and face masks. Just in time for the COVID meltdown. On the other side of Florida, Amelia Beamer, who helps budding writers, me, and I haven't been working on my novel for quite a while. I'll give you some updates on it, and I might even read a bit, but this is going to be in an upcoming show. She is associated with Locus magazine, Locus. What Locus does is review books of the three genres, horror, science fiction, and fantasy. And on YouTube, Amelia Beamer will tell you which books they're going to review for that month's issue. Okay. Dave Rubin, I've already gone through his life, but he's in Raleigh, North Carolina, with his wife, Vicki, who herself is a novelist. And then further on up to Long Island, Geraldine Goldfinger, and then back over to the West Coast, up to Sonora, Robert Finnegan, Bob and Sandy Fisher, and their two kids, Brad and Martha, and then Darrell Larson, who even at this advanced age. He's in our class, was in our high school class. Well, he's 81 now, and he runs about 50 head of cattle on his spread. And he was a bronc rider back in high school. He did the local rodeo circuit, and he has the broken bones to show for it. Judy May, Kathy Francis, Lynn Quayle, and further on up Highway 108 to Twainhart, John Gleason and his partner, and his two daughters, Jennifer and, oh geez, brain freeze. Okay, Jennifer, Jesus, I can't remember. And all the way down in Mexico City, Rosamalia Lopez Negrete. Buenos tardes, Rosy. Jeez. Okay. Forget the brain freeze. Okay. That's it. And let's get to the meat of the show. Okay. And there's more good news on this show than I think there has been on any show lately. Okay. Good news. Former Orange Sociopathic Bloat Bag's chief of staff when the Orange Sociopathic Bloat Bag was president, and he's a retired general, John Kelly, has gone on the record as opposing the Orange Sociopathic Bloat Bag and warning the country of his dictatorial leanings and his plans to go after anyone who disagrees with him or is a Democrat. Oh, he's going to lock us all up. He won't, but, he says he will. Okay. More good news. The founder of quote-unquote Cowboys for Trump, and his name is Couy Griffin, Couy, that's his first name. I've never known anybody else named that. I don't know where that name came from. Couy Griffin had his conviction upheld by the D.C. federal court. He took part in the January 6th MAGA insurrection at the Capitol in D.C. The judge ruled that Griffin did not have to know that the FBI and the Secret Service and the D.C. police and the Capitol Police were protecting the Capitol from the invaders. His lawyers were arguing that, well, he didn't know that those law enforcements were protecting the Capitol. This judge threw it all out and said he didn't have to know that to be guilty of trespassing and destruction of property and blah, 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 blah. Okay. Good news. A new lawsuit seeks to block the Bibles in Classrooms mandate issued by Oklahoma's schools chief, Ryan Walters. The plaintiffs include parents, teachers, and some faith leaders. Joined this. Smart faith leaders that realize that there should be a separation of church and state. Okay, and let's see. The plaintiffs include blah, 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 blah. And faith leaders who, quote, object to Walter's extremist agenda that imposes his personal religious beliefs on other people's children. The mandate is for the Protestant version of the Bible. There's a lot of different versions of the Bible. Okay, now I think it was the last week's show that there are criteria for which Bible, according to Ryan Walters, and the only Bible that meets all of the requirements are being hawked by the orange sociopathic bloat bag and is printed in China. And it includes within its binding the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and blah, blah, blah. And but anyway, the lawsuit is proceeding, and I will let you know about this lawsuit as it proceeds through the court system. Okay, here's a bit of bad news. Missouri's abortion rights amendment on the ballot this November 5th election will pass handily, polls say. So, in an attempt to confuse voters, the GOP MAGA heads and pro-lifers have included anti-trans messaging and misinformation on their billboards and other political dreck that they put out. Their message is, stop the transgender surgery for minors. Well, the Abortion Rights Amendment says nothing about this. This surgery is already illegal in Missouri. The hate-filled GOP MAGA heads are trying to create a boogeyman fear issue about the trans community through lies and misinformation. GOP states keep passing laws against care for transgender youth without specifying what care actually means. I had a discussion with one of my few right-wing relatives, and I brought this up, that why is the GOP making this such an issue? And he said, and I'm paraphrasing, it should be illegal for parents to mutilate their children. What kind of misinformation is he or was he buying into? The GOP MAGA heads, the hateful right-wingers and religious fanatics, would have us believe that little kindergartners who express some sort of doubts about their gender, whether they're a girl or a boy, quite a few kids that are young express at some point in their maturing process about their gender. And it's around 4 or 5 years old that kids become aware, and it's probably before that, 3, 4, 5 years old, become aware that there are two genders, girls and boys. And at some point, a handful of them will express some doubts about their own gender. Okay. And the hateful, cruel GOP Republicans have jumped on this and said parents will be wanting to mutilate their kids' genitalia just for liberals. And that's not true, of course. And Republicans in Republican-controlled states are passing all sorts of laws prohibiting gender affirming care. Well, they don't specify in any of these laws what care means. And it goes all the way from just talking to your doctor, a pediatrician, or a child psychologist, or all the way up when they get older, puberty blockers and oh boy, brain freeze time. Hormones that are female oriented or male oriented. Testosterone is the male hormone, and estrogen is the female hormone. So there are no sex reassignment surgeries until a kid turns 18 and becomes, in theory, an adult and can make decisions about that on their own. Now, I'm not saying it's never been done, but there may have been a rogue surgeon or two that have performed that surgery before the age of 18 on a kid. But there are no clinics that deal with gender dysphoria that have performed this. There are rules against it. No sex reassignment surgery until 18. That's the reality. But you couldn't convince a stupid-ass Republican of this. Okay, enough of that. Okay, good trans news. All right. The first out trans lawyer will be arguing before the Supreme Court in the U.S. And the case is called U.S. versus Skrmetti, Skrmetti. It's a kind of an unusual last name. Anyway, the lawyer in question is Chase Strangio, and I've seen him on some of my MSNBC shows, and he looks like a guy, mustache, and anyway, he's arguing against a Tennessee law passed by Republicans barring trans youth from gender affirming care. Well, it's already not done until a kid can turn 18 or does turn 18. It's just Republicans have seen this as a opportunity to get a few votes from their hate-filled base. All right. Okay, deceptive bad news. Corporations that use greenwashing are updating the chasing arrows symbol. Green Blue, a nonprofit that makes labels for large food and consumer products companies, are making consumers even more confused. It's these little stickers that food companies and consumer product companies that have plastic, in theory, recyclable containers. And you can put these stickers on them with the little chasing arrows and a number inside of it that kind of direct consumers on how to recycle these things. Well, the numbers 1 and 2, in theory, are completely recyclable. All the other numbers, up through 6, 3, 4, 5, 6, are not recyclable. And plastic bags, in theory, according to their makers, are recyclable. But the only thing that they can be used for after they're recycled is these decking planks that homeowners use to make, backyard decks out of them. And even that takes so much energy and power that it's debatable whether there is any environmental savings or not. Okay. Anyway, large corporations that make plastic products are jumping on the greenwashing bandwagon and saying, see, it's we want recycling. We want to help the environment. Bullshit. Okay. Good news. Dr. Jen Gunter, she's an OBGYN and a fellow skeptic. I met her in passing on a few occasions, and she's listed the supplements that she takes herself. She's not selling them. She's not recommending them, but it's good for her to know, good for us to know which one she herself takes. She has a newsletter that I would encourage all of my listeners to subscribe to. It's called the Vagenda, capital Vajenda. It's kind of a little play on words. She's the author of a book called The Vagina Bible, which I bought a copy of and then had her sign it when I went to one of her lectures. She's a very, very intelligent person. Why wouldn't she be? She's a doctor, for heaven's sakes. And here's the two supplements that she herself takes. Vitamin D, 1,000 IUs. I guess that's international units. And as you age, your body makes less and less of vitamin D. If you're outside in the sunlight, that helps, but your body makes less and less of it. So, and she's in her early 50s. So anyway, vitamin D, and the latest Endocrine Society guidelines recommends against routine vitamin D supplementation for ages 50 to 70. No, she says this right in her letter. That's going against what she herself takes. Okay. But for those with osteopenia, which is a weakening of the bones, and it is recommended to increase bone density. So as a general practice for older people ages 50 through 70, the Endocrine Society recommends against it, but she takes it herself because I think she does have osteopenia. Okay. And I've been diagnosed with osteopenia by Kaiser gave me a bone density scan, and I have a score of 2.0, and I'm not sure exactly the danger level, but they said I have osteopenia. Okay, at the 2 level, whatever that means. Okay, and then the other supplement she takes is protein supplements because she doesn't eat a lot of red meat or fish or fowl or anything that gives a lot of proteins. And she's not a vegetarian, although she just doesn't eat a lot of red meat. So for that reason, she supplements protein. So again, I say, please subscribe to Dr. Jen Gunter's The Vagenda newsletter. Okay, it's very interesting. It's not only for women, it's for everybody. Okay, good reality news. Palestine and Palestinians did not exist until Yasser Arafat went to the Soviet Union for training in Marxist-Leninist ideology. I think that's what he was trained for. And this is in 1964. That's not in my notes here, but I read it that he went to Moscow in 1964. And they convinced him to start calling the Arabs that still lived in the British Mandate area of Palestine to start calling themselves Palestinians and agitate for an independent nation of Palestine, which would be Arabs only. Okay? Before that time, the Arabs living in what was then the British Mandate of Palestine called themselves Southern Syrians. The only people calling themselves Palestinians were the Jewish people that had been living there for a long time. And there was post-World War II immigration of Jewish people from Europe and, the Hitler's Nazi regime. They fled there and came to the British Mandate of Palestine, mainly because of the Balfour Declaration that said the British government looked with approval upon the establishment in the Palestine Mandate area of a homeland for the Jewish people. Okay, and it went essentially downhill from there. I will go into a better history of this in a future show after the election. Okay, good news. The 56-member Commonwealth of Nations, and that used to be called the British Commonwealth until the anti-colonialism movement. Okay, it's not called that anymore. It's just called the Commonwealth of Nations. And most of them, I'm not sure of the membership, but most of them were ex-colonies of Great Britain. They were meeting in Samoa. I think they meet once a year, but they are considering calling for Pakistan to be suspended from the group due to Pakistani government's continued enforcement of blasphemy laws and acceptance of vigilante groups going after people that are accused of blasphemy. Religion, as I've always said, is the reason for all of the strife and wars and hatred and pain on this planet. Another sip. I have to have another sip. Okay. Ranting is hard on the vocal cords. Good news. 23 Nobel Prize-winning economists signed on to a letter that called Kamala Harris's economic agenda, quote, vastly superior to the concept of a plan by the orange sociopathic bloat bag. Harris's plan will strengthen, they say, the middle class and reduce inflation and be good for the development of small businesses. This is a letter from 23 Nobel Prize-winning economists. The orange sociopathic bloat bag wouldn't know economics if it bit him on his bloating ass. Okay, bad news. A coal-fired power plant in Alabama is again the nation's top greenhouse gas emitter, according to the EPA. Alabama Power's James H. Miller Jr. Electric generating plant was the largest single producer of CO2, nitrous oxides, sulfur dioxides, and mercury. And it's located right in the middle of Alabama near Birmingham. And those are the areas that are most affected. And of course, the majority of minority groups live in that area. So, of course, the white GOP politicians don't give a crap about, the people that live near this coal-fired plant. Okay, I got to hurry up here. In fact, I'm going to jump ahead a couple of them. Good news. Rudy Giuliani must turn over his assets to the 2 Georgia election workers that he defamed after the 2020 election. Federal Judge Louis Lemann ordered that the assets, including his Upper East Side apartment, into a receivership controlled by Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, the 2 election workers that Rudy accused of cheating, and the $2 million in legal fees that the orange sociopathic bloat bag owes to Rudy Giuliani are also due to the 2 women. The orange sociopathic bloat bag drags down and sullies everything he gets near and touches. Okay, good news to end the show. Members of the Central Park Five have sued the orange sociopathic bloat bag over false and defamatory statements he made in the debate last month with Kamala Harris. Attorneys for the Five said the plaintiffs, the Central Park Five, never pled guilty to the 1989 assault in Central Park. DNA evidence linked another person to the attack. The orange sociopathic bloat bag took out a New York Times full-page ad calling for their execution, and he has not apologized. Okay, play out music. You have been listening to The Midnight Skeptic on KPCA LP, Petaluma, California. And we're at 103.3 on the FM dial and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. Support community radio at patreon.com/Petaluma Community Access. And remember, think critically, think logically, but live joyously, and most importantly, pet your cats. See you all again next week when we have even more fun and the election draws ever closer. Bye-bye.